It started with a notification. A teenager in Pennsylvania received a Snapchat video call from her friend, 16-year-old Joshua Cooper. When she answered, he was crying. Behind him, the camera showed something blurred, something wrong. Then, through the filter's yellow haze, he said the words that froze her. "I did something bad." He turned the phone toward the floor. What she saw made her hang up and call 911. 45 minutes later, police were at his door. By then, the story had already spread. Screenshots, rumors, and whispers through school group chats. A murder confession had gone viral before the sirens even reached the street. The timeline begins at 4:11 p.m., November 25th, 2022. A 16-year-old girl in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, was scrolling Snapchat when a notification flashed. "Jay streaming now, wants to video chat." She answered. The connection opened to a dimly lit bedroom. Walls lined with band posters, curtains drawn against the gray daylight. On screen, Joshua Cooper, barely visible in the yellow filter, looked shaken. His voice was uneven. He told her he had done something bad. He turned his phone toward the floor. What she saw was unclear and brief, but enough to make her close the app instinctively. Seconds later, she messaged back, "Are you serious?" He replied, "Not a joke." At 4:17 p.m., she called 911 and told dispatchers what she'd seen. Her location was logged, and officers from Bensalem Police began tracing the Snapchat username. The platform's law enforcement portal returned an IP address within minutes, a small row home on Gibson Road. At 4:39 p.m., officers arrived. Bodycam footage later showed a quiet street, holiday decorations still hanging on porches. Through the door, they heard movement and a teenage voice say, "I'm coming." When Cooper opened the door, his hands were stained and trembling. Investigators later noted that less than 45 minutes passed between confession and arrest, a timeline so fast that digital forensics called it the shortest window ever recorded for a social media-triggered homicide. Response: Snapchat's servers preserved the video call metadata, which would become key evidence at trial. It proved the confession was real-time, unscripted, and recorded only because the app auto-cached for security. By the time officers entered the house, the scene was still. Cooper was taken into custody without incident. The message chain ended there. 10 minutes of Snapchat conversation that would define the rest of his life. When officers entered the Cooper residence, the air was heavy and silent. The living room was neat, lights still on, television playing faintly. At the top of the narrow staircase, one officer called out, "Police!" There was no answer. In the bathroom, they found what confirmed the girl's story, a body of a 12-year-old girl, later identified as KM, lying on the floor beside the tub. The details were recorded only in the report, never released to the public. What mattered most for investigators was the timeline, the 911 call, the IP trace, the entry, all within 45 minutes. Cooper's bedroom door was open. Inside were 3 cell phones, 1 laptop, and a desktop tower still running. The Snapchat app was open on screen. The last call marked ended 4:13 p.m. Officers also found handwritten notes with timestamps, a list of video titles, and a disposable camera on the desk. It appeared he had planned to document something. When detectives asked what happened, Cooper said quietly, "It was an accident." He told them he was cleaning up when they arrived. His voice, recorded on the officer's body cam, stayed even, almost detached. Investigators sealed the home and called in the county forensic team. Technicians bagged the phones first, ensuring chain of custody. Every device would later show the same pattern: deleted files, cleared caches, and a single outgoing video sent minutes before the call. Neighbors watched from their porches as police cars filled the block. One woman told local reporters he was just a quiet kid. You'd never think he'd do something like that. By 6 p.m., the house was cordoned off with yellow tape, and by nightfall, a single phrase had begun trending on local Snapchat stories. He confessed. At the police station, Joshua Cooper sat in a gray hoodie. Head down, hands folded, he was 16, small for his age, and spoke barely above a whisper. Detectives began the interview at 7:10 p.m. Reading him his rights, he nodded and said, "I know why I'm here." The transcript shows long silences between questions. When asked about the Snapchat call, Cooper said, "I didn't mean for her to see. I just wanted to tell someone." He described panic, a spur-of-the-moment thing, followed by fear, followed by confession. His responses were simple. Often one or two words. He asked repeatedly, "Is she okay?" Even after detectives confirmed she wasn't. The motive, investigators said, was confusion and rage. Friends described weeks of erratic behavior, arguments, withdrawal, obsession with dark challenges online. One classmate told reporters he had started posting vague captions like, "What if regret was live?" Police seized his devices for digital forensics. They found recent Google searches for Snapchat deletion time. Can police trace video calls? And what happens if you confess online? It suggested premeditation, not of the act itself, but of the aftermath. Psychological evaluators later reported signs of dissociation, depression, and exposure to violent online communities. He had no prior record, no gang ties, no drugs in his system. Just a boy with a phone and a moment he couldn't undo. The district attorney called it a tragedy built on accessibility. Every tool he used, the camera, the chat, the confession, existed for connection, but that night they became the architecture of a crime. By 9 p.m., Joshua was formally charged as an adult with homicide, possession of criminal tools, and tampering with evidence. His Snapchat account was deleted hours later. When the case reached the Bucks County Courthouse, the courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the benches. Microphones lined the front row. Outside, news vans waited under gray Pennsylvania skies. This was the first local case in which a Snapchat video call had served as both confession and evidence. Prosecutors presented the digital timeline, the 911 call, the metadata, the recovered cache from Cooper's phone. A forensic technician testified that Snapchat's automatic safety buffer had saved the call for 30 seconds after disconnection, just long enough for investigators to confirm what the witness described. Cooper's defense attorney described him as a frightened child who made a catastrophic mistake. He pointed to his age, mental state, and the immediacy of remorse. But prosecutors argued intent, citing search history, deletion attempts, and his calm during arrest. The victim's family sat quietly throughout. They declined interviews. In one statement read by their attorney, they said, "The internet is not a diary. It's not where you confess. It's where nothing ever dies." Public reaction split instantly. Some saw a symptom of a digital generation, teenagers conditioned to record emotion before understanding it. Others saw moral decay, a boy who treated guilt like content. TikTok and Reddit filled with commentary, ethics debates, armchair psychology, and viral clips of courtroom footage set to somber music. The phrase Snapchat confession became shorthand for digital-era crime. In March 2024, the judge ordered a full psychological evaluation before trial. He would remain in custody without bail. The press called it the fastest confession in modern criminal history. And for a brief moment, it forced the internet to look at itself and see what happens when a generation learns to confess through a lens. In April 2024, after months of evaluation and pretrial hearings, Joshua Cooper pleaded guilty to third-degree murder, possession of criminal tools, and evidence tampering. The judge ruled that his age, cooperation, and immediate confession spared him a life sentence, but not freedom. He would serve between 17 and 40 years in a state correctional facility. When the sentence was read, the courtroom was silent. Reporters noted that Cooper's mother sobbed quietly in the second row. He didn't turn around, the prosecutor told the court. Technology didn't make this crime. It only made it visible. Outside, students from his high school gathered on the sidewalk, holding signs that read "Justice for KM." A few others left flowers and letters taped to the courthouse steps. Every message ended the same way: "We still don't understand." Online, the conversation never really stopped. The phrase Snapchat confession became a digital shorthand for tragedy. Clips of his interrogation circulated with hashtags like #modernguilt and #confession culture, pulling millions of views. Most people never saw his face in court. Only filtered screenshots, yellow tones, pixelated grief. Meanwhile, the victim's name faded from trending pages, replaced by true crime compilations and video essays. A tragedy converted into watch time. Investigators said it was the purest example yet of how fast empathy erodes on social media. 1 year later, during a university lecture on cybercrime ethics, a professor displayed the case timeline on a projector. He asked the room a question that hung in silence. If confession becomes content, what happens to remorse? No one answered. The screen just glowed yellow. Today, the Cooper case lives online as both archive and warning. Type Snapchat confession into any search bar, and the first result isn't the victim's name. It's the clip of a blurred teenager staring into his phone. The algorithm remembers what the world prefers to forget. Inside Bucks County Correctional, Joshua spends most days in digital silence. No phone, no Wi-Fi, no screen. He takes classes, reads, and writes letters his mother delivers once a month. In one, he reportedly wrote, "I wish I could take back the call. I didn't think anyone would believe it was real." Psychologists studying the case call it the first truly network-accelerated confession, a crime witnessed, reported, and solved inside the lifespan of a notification. They describe it as an echo of empathy delayed by bandwidth. For educators and parents, the case became a curriculum reference. High schools in Pennsylvania now include it in digital ethics lessons. teachers tell students. The camera is not a diary. The message, connection without comprehension, can destroy lives. The victim's name, KM, appears only once in the state's digital crime report, a single line among statistics. But her story survives in the awareness it sparked. Her tragedy reshaped how platforms handle live confessions, forcing emergency response protocols that trigger within seconds. Outside her old school, a memorial bench sits beneath a street lamp. It glows faintly at night. Snapchat yellow from the nearby cafe sign. Someone still leaves flowers there. A quiet reminder that even after deletion, the digital ghost remains, not haunting the screen, haunting the silence that follows it. If you thought the horror ended here, you're wrong. What other dark rituals and forbidden practices are still being performed in secret? Dive deeper into the chilling world of haunted ceremonies, banned footage, and eerie folklore that refuses to stay buried. Click on the playlist to uncover terrifying recordings, lost evidence, and disturbing stories they never wanted you to see. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for weekly uploads of spine-tingling footage and dark tales that echo from the shadows. This is the Forbidden's Archive, where the hidden truth and haunting evidence come to life.